Hey, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Beyond Day One. I'm David, and tonight we're going to talk about and jump back into talking a little bit about soft skills. There's a recent survey by intelligent.com, and I just want to read this to you. It says that an intelligent.com survey of nearly 1,000 U.S. business leaders found that employers' top complaint about young hires is a lack of motivation or initiative. And tonight we're going to talk about initiative, and we're going to kind of lay down the groundwork this week of what initiative is. And next week we're going to give you the playbook on how to get initiative to work for you in the workplace. But let me finish with this survey. It says that 50% of leaders cited that as the reason things didn't work out, the inability to take initiative and the connected issue of motivation. Now we've talked about motivation here in this podcast before, and you can go back and look at the old episode about that. I know we're going to tackle that again, but when it comes to initiative, you know, if you I want to show this to you from two sides. From the employer side of the game, it is so frustrating to have an employee who just won't take initiative on anything. And there are too many young professionals out there right now who are looking similar to that. And it's frustrating to your employer. And what they feel like is not that there's something to fix, but someone to get rid of and find somebody who can resolve that issue. And that's not good for you as a young professional. So, what do you as a young professional need to do? Well, first of all, let's make sure we all understand what initiative is. By definition, initiative is the ability to recognize what needs to be done and act on it without being told. It's seeing a gap, a need, or an opportunity and moving toward it on your own. We've got to talk about this, and I'm not here alone as usual. I've got my compadres with me. We've got John and we've got Phillip here today, and we're going to tackle some more about this initiative. If I could kind of give you a platform to go with initiative, it would be this. It would be awareness, action, and ownership. Awareness, action, and ownership. The awareness portion is being aware that there's a need, seeing that there's a need, there's something that needs to be done without someone pointing it out. And let me tell you, young professional, that's really the key. Your boss is looking for you to be the type of person that simply sees something needs to be done and doesn't necessarily wait for somebody else to do it. You may inquire whether that is the responsibility of someone else. You may inquire whether someone else has maybe started on that. But if they haven't, then it's up to you to begin to look at taking the initiative. Even if that means going to your boss and saying, hey, this looked like it's not done or something that needs to be worked on. Would you mind if I took the lead on that? But they're looking for people who will take the lead, and so far, finding far too few. John, just edit right there. I need to just take a drink real quick.
Do what you gotta do. All
All right, here
good.
we go with the second part. The second part is action, moving on it without waiting, without looking for someone to give you the direction to do it or any specific, go over there, do this, pick this up, move it from this table to this table, and all of that good stuff. You move on it. And then finally, ownership. You own it. Follow through, take the responsibility until you get to the desired outcome. Ownership belongs to you. Awareness, action, and ownership. But let me tell you what initiative is not. It's not doing more busy work or staying late to look more productive. It's not overstepping your role or making decisions about or above your pay grade. Initiative is not saying yes to everything. That's people pleasing, and that's not initiative.
Mhm.
So we've got to kind of figure this thing out. Philip and John, when you hear this word initiative, what comes to mind and sparks for you?
I think one of the things that immediately comes to my mind is like you said, you nailed it with that word ownership. Initiative is definitely it's conveying a sense of ownership and a sense of responsibility, knowing that okay, I'm here to do a job. I've got hired for a reason. What's within my sphere of responsibility? And in those things, whatever that list of tasks or list of responsibilities might be, you know that it's a pretty safe bet that once you understand the job and and know the basic things that are involved in it, going ahead and doing it without being told will not be anything that's out of bounds. You know, it's going to be something that fits right in and shows that you do uh, feel a sense of ownership about what you're doing. You feel a sense of accountability for what you're doing, and you're demonstrating that you can be proactive, meaning you're not always basically the opposite of reactive. Because reactive is you wait for something to break or something to fall apart or something
Yep.
else to happen. And many companies operate like that, kind of in crisis mode most of the time. You don't want to always be in that space where you're just managing one crisis to another crisis and putting out fires left, right, front, and center. But having that taking initiative in the areas that you've been delegated responsibility for, it shows that you know that you what you can contribute is going to be something that's going to move things further along, and that it's going to be nothing that'll be out of bounds or something that you might get in trouble for or whatever. It's going to be something that eventually the higher ups, the people that have some type of a supervisory authority over you, they're going to look at and go, yeah, okay, this person, they take their job seriously. They believe in being accountable for what they're doing, and that they are contributing something that shows ownership and responsibility.
Yeah.
You know, Philip, there's something interesting. And I mentioned the survey in the beginning, and a follow-up survey to that survey said, now this was back in for the year 2025. It said that a follow-up survey in December of 2024 of those 1,000 hiring managers showed that 12% said they would avoid hiring recent graduates for entry level positions entirely in
Wow.
2025. Look,
Wow.
that's a lot of positions, and that's a lot of people. And based upon some other surveys that I've read and looked at, that 12% has probably increased to a little bit closer to probably 15 to 20%. So I think there are even less positions available. And so much of it is built around this issue of taking initiative, motivation, communication. These are
Yeah.
all critically important soft skills that you have to come to the table with. And, you were saying some things there. And, there are a couple of reasons why I can see some Gen Z may come to the table without that skill in place. Number one, when you think about college, college is a listen to me and just do what I say environment.
Mm,
So they're not being asked to take initiative in college. They're being given instruction and told what to do, and that's the extent of their work. So they don't get the concept of necessarily getting to replicate the same things that they would be asked to do in a business environment. Also, as you come out of college and you actually take many entry level jobs, it goes back to an article I wrote a few weeks ago. And it's this concept of just giving that person a job and telling them to figure it out.
Yeah.
That is not leadership in the workplace. You
right.
are actually creating the problem that you hate and then blaming the employee for the problem rather than your process, your orientation, and how you're handling things. And then the third thing is that, and this is a real thing because we've talked before about the anxiety that Gen Z feels, and they feel anxiety towards overstepping their boundaries or making mistakes in a new environment. That's a real and that's a valid experience. John, you want to touch on that a little bit more?
Yeah, that anxiety is very real, and I've come to find that out a lot in these past few years with just a team that I've been working with. And at first, I'm kind of in a manager position. It's very easy to just be like, like just get over it. Like you sometimes you just have to do the thing. But I realized that um, it's a little bit deeper than that. I have personally found myself using like the most effective tool to train somebody and to make sure that they feel the most comfortable performing whatever task is to train somebody with the big picture. Unfortunately, I was in a place where when I was trained in the current job, I had it was a very reactive trainer. He was very much, this is the type of computer you're going to receive. This is how you're going to audit this. This is the information that you put in here. And I wasn't retaining this information just because I wasn't, it wasn't stimulating like, me learning a skill. It was just, you see this, you do this. And it felt like I was a robot. And I didn't learn until I made all those mistakes. Now I've been in a place where I realize because it helped me see the full picture of why I need to send these certain objects here and why this needs to be dealt with this way or in a particular matter. I've learned that it's very quick or it's very easy to train somebody and they're very quick to pick these skills up when they understand, okay, this is why I'm sending this to be sold in a manner, or this is why I'm sending this to be fixed. Because there's a certain when you understand the transparency between management, leadership, and a company's goals and versus what your role is in that goal. Man, it's so easy to pick up on certain skills, and it also puts people in a position to achieve those goals more efficiently than you thought that they needed to be done. And that's the key thing that I was trying to get to there. Um, if I give somebody the room to just achieve this goal, here's the amount of computers you need to work today. This is how they're supposed to be worked. I don't want to say just figure it out, but here are some different methods you can try to get to that point. Um, and I've come to learn that some people just need the space to figure out their workflow and their own way of figuring out this issue or figuring out how to process these computers without being told exactly how they need to be done. Um, and that, like I said, you have to kind of give a little bit of room from the management perspective to let somebody breathe and let somebody have the opportunity to do things a little bit differently to achieve something else, like achieve the same goal but through a more effective way.
Yeah, I think what matters is outcomes. And I
Yeah.
think that's ultimately what employers are looking for. They're looking for the outcomes that say, A, the work is finished, B, it's done right, C, it's done well, and we can
Yes.
move with this thing. So, all right, we've laid out a little bit for you what initiative is. In the next episode, we're going to give you 5 or 6 keys about how to take initiative at work so that you can begin to start reshaping how people see you in your workplace. I also want to make sure that we give you a quick opportunity to, first of all, go back and watch the episode on motivation. Is Gen Z, does Gen Z lack motivation? I think is the episode back there. I think that will help you because one of the real answers for Gen Z motivation is finding their purpose. When you find purpose, then motivation is going to naturally be there for that Gen Z person. Make sure you do us a favor and share this episode. If you know somebody who's starting a new job or who's a new professional in their work environment, share this with them and share next week's episode with them as well. I think that both of you will find it fruitful and helpful. Until next time, I'm David, he's Philip, and that's John, and we're out.